All right, functions. I think I'm just going to do a demo for functions. So let me just go run through my slides real quick. So a function, I think of a function as like a gun, right? The code that's inside of a function is there, ready to run until we pull the trigger. If we don't pull the trigger, if we don't invoke the function, that code never runs. Okay, so it's kind of like it's there in case we need it, but if we don't need it, it never runs, right? So we define, and I gotta show this later. So the syntax for a function is basically we use the def keyword, we give our function a name, and then we pass it parameters optionally, and then it returns a value. Okay, so the parameters and arguments. What's the difference between a parameter and an argument? This is very important. People use them interchangeably, but there is a distinction.
I believe parameters are the data type it's expecting, and arguments are the literal data being passed into it.
Good, good. So a parameter is basically the variable that Python creates for the data that eventually gets passed in. So the parameter is the variable, the argument is what the argument or what the function actually takes. So if I say function declaration, this is called a function declaration. So we're basically at this point loading our gun, right? We're setting it up. If we need it, we have this code in here that's going to run whenever we invoke this function. Okay, so the def keyword, function name your function something other than like something silly like X, or, you know, name them what they do. You want your code to be readable by you, by other people, by you 6 months from now, right? So name your functions something akin to what they do. The parameter is what gets passed in, and then we can act on the parameter inside what's called the body of the function. So anything indented is the body of the function. Okay, so if I invoke the function, if I pull the trigger, I'm passing it in the data, right? So I can't pass this a bare word. I mean, I could if it were defined, but I'm passing it a string, right? So when I invoke this function or call the function, what am I going to see in the terminal? Anyone? All right. Okay, I see the chat. All right. Okay, not parameter. What are we going to see? Argument, right? So the parameter is when I call this function, right? So parameter is the variable. And you can think of it like behind the scenes, Python is saying, okay, parameter equals this, right? So this is the variable. It gets assigned to whatever I pass in, and then it prints whatever gets passed in. So when I invoke this function, I see argument in the terminal. If I had passed in whatever, Kevin, right? It would print Kevin. Okay. All right. Returning values. So if I have the function define 7, I pass it lucky number, or I define the parameter lucky number, I'm printing lucky number, and I'm returning 6 plus 1, right? Everybody understand what the setup here? So I have a parameter of lucky number, I'm printing it to the screen, and I'm returning 6 plus 1. So if I call this, if I say 7, pass it 42, what's going to happen? What am I going to see in the terminal if I were to print return value?
Actually, it's going to print. It's going to print 42, but the return value is going to equal 7.
Exactly, exactly. So if I invoke this function, I set it equal to return value, it's going to print 42 to the screen, right? So we're going to see 42 print to the screen, but if I were to print out return value, I would see 7, right? So a function, yeah, so if I print return value, I'm going to see 7 on the screen. So I want you to remember this, a function is what it returns. Okay, so if you assign a variable to a function call, an invocation of a function, that variable is going to be assigned whatever that function returns. Okay. Questions about that so far? All right, let's see what else. And then just compared to JavaScript. Yeah, okay. I'm going to come back to default and named, back to debugging. So functions practice. So this is the assignment. I think it's functions 1 of the practice assignments. You're supposed to say what's going to happen. So what are we going to get when I run this code?
Five.
Yeah, 5, right? Because I've defined my function. I return 5. I'm invoking that function here and printing it to the screen. So when I invoke this function, a function is what it returns, right? So calling this function is like pulling the trigger on this gun. It's going to basically evaluate to 5. So when I print it, it's going to print 5. Okay. What about this one? What's this going to, what are we going to get for this one?
I'd guess an error because
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah,
have
we
anything.
don't, this function isn't defined. So I'm trying to invoke it and it's not there, right? We can't assume that this is defined anywhere. So this is going to be an error, a name error specifically saying that this is not defined. Okay. What about this one? What am I going to see?
Five.
5. Why not 10?
Because after the first return, you basically kill everything else.
Exactly. Exactly. As soon as you see return in a function, the function's done, right? As soon as Python encounters this line, it returns 5 and it's done. So anything below a return statement is inaccessible. And your Visual Studio Code, if you have Pylance installed, it'll actually give you a warning saying this code is not accessible. Okay. So the 5. What about this one? What are we going to print? What are we going to see on the console?
5.
5, right? Will we ever see 10?
Nope.
No, right? Never, because we've returned, the function's done. So this print statement will never, ever, ever fire. All right, what about this one?
You're going to get 5 and then number of Great Lakes in a separate line.
Okay, so 5 and number of Great Lakes. Everybody agree with that? Ben's disagreeing.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought that was a string. My bad. I read it wrong.
Okay,
Just
so
gonna be 5.
yeah, it's going to be 5 and I screwed up. That's wrong. So it will print 5, but it will also print none. So when we invoke this function will fire. Then we come in here and we print 5, but we're assigning the function invocation itself to X. So remember, a function is what it returns. So if we don't explicitly return anything, if we don't use the return keyword, then by default, a function returns none in Python. Okay, so if we don't specify something for the function to return, we're going to get none. Okay. Let's see, I think I did a few more. So what about this one?
Gonna print 3 and 5 on successive lines.
Okay.
Because it's gonna add the 1 and the 2 and print it, and then it's gonna add the 2 and the 3 and print it.
Okay. Does everybody agree? So remember, a function is what it returns, right? So we're printing a B plus C, but are we explicitly returning anything?
You're not returning, so it's going to give you a none.
Right. So this will evaluate to none, and this will evaluate to none. It will print them to the screen, right? We'll see 3 and 5, right? But once we get this to this line, actually it might not even print. I'm not sure. But anyway, this evaluates to none, and this evaluates to none. So we're trying to add 2 nuns together. So we're going to get unsupported operand plus for none type and none type. So basically we're saying you're trying to add none to none, which doesn't make any sense. None plus none doesn't make any sense at all. Okay, questions about this? All right. Let's see, which one did I want to do? I think I want to do, let me stop.